So
we're going to now look at Cheuk Cheuk's progress over the last 6 months in the area of receptive language, or like understanding language. And this is a really important area for children to sort of understand the world around them and what we say, and then they can understand more about what they do or what messages we want to convey to them. If you remember at the very beginning of therapy, Cheuk Cheuk was not so good at understanding language. We think he may have had some labels, but he wasn't very responsive to us when we asked him to demonstrate those skills, to give us something or to follow an instruction. Often when we asked him to follow an instruction, he may ignore us or just continue to do like whatever he was doing. And so he wasn't very responsive to our sort of language demands. And it was quite difficult to get him to follow what we wanted him to do. So we began with a number of programs. One of the programs we began is teaching him to listen and focus on just sounds, which is a lot easier. Sounds are more discriminable than words. Words are nuanced and have much finer discriminations between them. Whereas a sound like a banging of a drum or ringing of a bells is much more distinct. So the first program we were looking at was auditory discrimination training, which is a big word, but it basically means I've got some things here, I'm going to ring the bell or play the piano. You cannot see my things and you have to do the same thing. You can only do that task if you're listening carefully to the instruction that I give. So it's a really good precursor task to learning about language. We then have been teaching him to follow some simple instructions, everyday instructions, and we began that in a fairly structured way. And we went on to develop a lot of different kinds of activities that worked on him labeling things. So when we would ask him for the dog or the ball or the bus, and then he could accurately identify those items. There were things he knew, and there are many, many more that we had to teach him to kind of build his vocabulary. And as I said before, we tried to think of a lot of different activities that we could do that in, so that the lessons stayed kind of fun and interesting. We moved on to look at other kinds of concepts like attributes, maybe about color or size, and seeing if he could identify those things when we give him instructions relating to those concepts. We then started to put all of these little individual concepts together. So one example of that is following a program where we give a verb and an object. So we might say something like, can you throw the ball or can you point at the dog? So you need to listen to two parts of information, the verb and the object, put it together and process it to be able to do the action. And then we also worked on sort of more two-step instructions. These are much longer and have a bit more information in them. And again, it's processing two parts of information to do something much more complicated. At the end of the 6 months, we're up to about 3 steps of information. So you'll see in this next activity, he's able to listen to 3 parts and put them in sequence and be quite accurate with what he's doing.
Google
係啊，細香蕉俾哥哥喎，大蘋果俾爸爸。
Apple
係喎，大蘋果俾爸爸。
So he's made really good progress, and the receptive understanding is certainly one of Cheuk Cheuk's biggest strengths in terms of his profile. So we've continued to try to, build him up in an area of strength, and he's been learning very, very quickly. So we'll share with you more of those programs as we go through the coming weeks, and I hope this has been interesting to see how he's been doing in the past 6 months.